Hello, in this experiment we'll study about VLAN deployment. In VLAN deployment we'll use layer 3 switch 3650 and with 3 different switches to create multiple VLANs and do an inter VLAN routing between them. We'll also configure multiple PCs and a server in those different VLANs and we'll use ICP packets to send between them to test the connectivity and configuration. We'll perform this experiment on Cisco Packet Tracer and we'll start with configuring the multi-layer switches 3650 by using command line provided by Cisco Packet Tracer. So first, we'll go to conf t and we'll create 4 VLAN 10, VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 30, VLAN 100. Next step is to uh, Next step we'll see what the VLANs were created. So we can see that the 4 VLANs are created already and they are active. Next step is to configure the interface between server and the multi-layer switch, that is G1020. So for that we need to put interface in access mode. So we'll start by going in conf t mode. We'll put interface G1020. We'll type switch mode access, and as we have defined that as VLAN 100, we will use switch port access VLAN 100. As that is done, our configuration of that is done. We can check it by switch show 1020 uh, exit G1020, show it. You can see that we have configured that interface. Next step is to configure the interface between multi-layer switch, that is core switch, and switch 123. So for that we'll go to conf t mode again. In that interface G0101, will configure switch mode trunk encapsulation 801.1q protocol, that is by default used by the switch, and mode will be trunk. Similarly, uh, int exit int G102, in that also encapsulation mode will be .1q protocol, and will switch mode will be trunk. Next tab is again configuring interface 103. that that interface is also using trunk mode, and we'll select same configuration for that. And now we can see that all these interface went down and up, and now they are almost ready to run. Next step is to configure interface VLAN. For interface VLAN, we will first have to turn it on, so no shut. Once that is done, we need to change its IP address, and IP address will be 10.1.254.255.255.255.0. My bad, it will be IP address. Once that is done, we'll exit int VLAN 10 IP address. We'll just have to change the 10 here. Exit VLAN 20. IP address will be 20. Exit VLAN 30 IP address will be 30. Exit VLAN 100 IP address will be 100 here. Yeah, so that is done. Next step, we can check these configuration by sh IP int brief, that is interface in brief. We can see the configured VLAN IP addresses here, VLAN interfaces with IP address here, and they are all up. So next step is to configure each and every switch. For each switch we need to configure two interfaces, that is gigabit 01 and fast ethernet F01. For that we'll go into CLI mode of that switch. We'll go into enable mode, and in conf uh, we can see int G01, we can see interface is up. So now uh, in conf t mode we need to int G01, and we need to select switch mode trunk. Once that is done, we have to write VTP mode client, device is set to client, and sh vtp status. We can see there are 5 existing VLANs, and we can access VLAN. It may take us some while to for switch to learn its VLANs from the multi-layer switch. We can just wait, and now we can check that there are 4. It has learned all the VLANs available in the network. So next step is to configure interface F10 int in conf mode int F01 F01 switch mode must be access, and switch port access should be VLAN 10, and exit interface VLAN 1, and its IP address should be 10.1.1 as for that switch, 255.255.255.0, and IP gateway default gateway must be 10.1.1 254. So next step, this must be replicated for each and every switches. Next step is to configure the IP address of the computer. So for that we need to set IP address at 10.10.10, subnet is 24 mask, so, and default gateway is 10.1.10.254. This also should be replicated for each and every computer. Last step is to configure the server we have, and that will have 10.1.100 and 255 255 255 0. Similarly, 10.1.100.254 will be the default gateway. Once that is done, all we need is to ping from one another. So our task was to make sure PCs can ping each other. Now we know the IP address of the PC2 is ping 10.1.20.20. Yeah, so now it can first VLAN 10 PC can access this. Next switches can ping PCs, and server. Now ping 10.1.10. Yeah. So again, ping is successful. Next is PC can ping the server. So ping 10.1.100.100. That is the server IP. Yep. And that's the successful ping request. Hence, we would like to conclude in this experiment we configured and deployed 4 different VLANs, and then we configured multi-layer switch and 3 access layer switch, and then configured each and every interface between that and pinged the inter VLAN computers as well as computers and servers and computers and switches. Thank you.